Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I am your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike, the Cranky Fan. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, is this also a first ever episode for this podcast, a Week 18 game preview, or did we do that last year?
I think we did a show. I don't know how much we previewed it, but it really bugs me.
No, this isn't this the first year with Week 18?
We did it last year. Remember, did we play in Miami last year? So we had the extra.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay.
I'm just annoyed that it's another last game of the season and it's a meaningless game for the Giants. I mean, same old, same. Oh, sorry, Grump. It's meaningless in a good way because we're going to the playoffs next week.
And it means a whole lot to the Eagles. So this Sunday, January 8th at 4:25, the Giants and Eagles will face off at the same time that the Dallas Cowboys and Washington Tutties, or whatever their name is now, face off in Washington, or whatever, in Landover, Maryland.
Yeah.
This game is incredibly interesting, but before we get to it, we do have a minor bit of housekeeping to do. House cleaning?
Housekeeping. Yeah.
The last game, we did not mention Jalen Smith's missed sack. And I kind of do want your opinion on this. All right, so we agree, right, that was a direct result of him not wanting to get a penalty and drive a quarterback to the ground that had released the ball, didn't realize that he didn't actually release the ball, and so he pulls a Matthias Kiwanuka and just lets him go. And I think it was an incomplete pass anyway, but it was just bizarre because nobody knew what the hell was going on for a split second, and then everyone started playing football again, and it was an incomplete pass, and then, Jalen Smith went to the sideline and wanted to hang himself. My real question, though, is, do you blame him? Matthias Kiwanuka, I don't know if he was ever, what am I looking for here? Forgiven by Giants fans for that mess up?
Mm-hmm.
I would say times are different now.
It's a living in infamy moment for sure, where it's always going to be, when you think about Kiwanuka being with the Giants, you're always going to bring that up. This is what the league wants now. The league is so protective of their quarterbacks, and, we thought that it would take a long time for these, defenders to change the way they play. And, the goal being not having these hits on quarterbacks, but now they're so over the top of what they call as roughing the passer or late hit or anything that you are messing with these guys' brains now. Which should be an instinctive thing to go after the quarterback and knock him into next Thursday. They have to think, and that is as much an advantage to the quarterback as the rule itself. It's a psychological thing that these guys have to worry about. So I don't blame him personally. I just blame that this culture of, protecting quarterbacks at all costs, even if there's nothing to protect them from, hopefully it's something that's addressed again and they tweak the rules in the offseason to make it more fair and more football realistic.
I doubt it, but I agree with you. I would say that I don't really like the way that the NFL has pushed its officiating in recent years. I mean, they are the full err on the side of caution with every play. And I don't just mean with like injuries and personal fouls. I mean with everything. And I think it's stupid. I think they have eliminated judgment from the people who are supposed to be judging. There is no judgment call with hitting a quarterback anymore. I mean, it's kind of insane that there's no like, well, that was unnecessary. Everything was unnecessary now. And where it really gets silly and confounding is with turnovers. Now, every time the ball hits the ground, an official just errs on the side of caution. It's like, well, maybe it's a turnover. We'll review it because it's automatic. Well, here's the thing. It was obviously not a turnover. You knew that, but you didn't blow the whistle. And now we have idiots hitting each other for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because someone has to pick up the ball because no one blew a whistle. And now we have people running down the sideline. We have left tackles chasing cornerbacks and getting clipped at the knees, being blocked on the blind side, crackback blocks, all kinds of stuff. Quarterbacks trying to make tackles for no reason.
Right.
They have eliminated judgment from the people who are supposed to be judging. And I understand, and I think it comes with good intentions, but in practice is stupid. It's stupid. Do we trust these officials to make calls or not?
Yeah. And then for judgment call going to replay, when you're doing it at fractions of a second and super slow, where, it's no longer judgment. It's, it's apples and oranges trying to compare. And it makes it even more frustrating. Because if you slow everything down to the Zapruder film, you can get to any conclusion that you want on a judgment call. We're not talking about inbounds, out of bounds.
Right.
First down, not first down, touchdown, not touchdown.
Those are not judgment calls.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's where the more I thought about it, and like I was annoyed when we were at the game and it happened. I cooled off pretty quickly, but I think just in general, the more I thought about the situation, the more I landed right there. Is that like the NFL now has just, the officials are just guys who hold the whistle now. They don't really seem to do anything anymore. It's frustrating. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying I have a perfect solution, because I don't, and B, I'm not saying that replay is a massive problem, because that's not what I'm saying either. I think the overall direction of I don't know. I
don't think it's a question of even replay being the problem or the mechanics of replay. It's just the overall philosophy and of what they want to call and not call.
Right. Exactly.
The replay is just, remember, the goal of replay is not 100% accuracy on every single call. The goal of replay is to eliminate as much as possible wrong calls. So if there used to be 25% calls were wrong and we're down to 10, replay has done its job.
Correct.
But again, replay really should be for things that are objective. Touchdown, not touchdown. Inbounds, out of bounds. Catch, not catch. When you're talking about things like pass interference and you're talking about holding and things like that, that's subjective. And I don't know. Maybe the answer is that replay shouldn't be a reactive thing where you have to challenge. Maybe you need to have an actual live official upstairs who said, hey, I just saw this. I just replayed it really quickly. I'm overturning it right now.
Well, that's the thing, because if you do that, then you don't have to have officials holding the whistle and not blowing it.
Yeah. I mean,
just to double check it later, to double check what they were pretty sure about.
And remember, we have members of this game that are sitting up in the booth. We have assistant coaches who are up in the, so it's not because, well, they're not on the field, they're not participating in this game. Offensive coordinator is up in the booth. He's looking down, he's calling in plays. We have technology. This isn't 1937. This is, what is this, 2023?
Yes.
Yeah.
So far. Okay, and I've said my piece. I don't want to dwell on...
Piece said.
Yeah, I mean, a game in which we absolutely destroyed the opponent, I'm not going to fixate on whatever, but I did want to mention it. So going into this game, the Giants can't do anything to change their spot in the playoffs. They are the 6th seed, period. The Eagles, on the other hand... Well, let me ask you this. They have everything to play for because the 1 seed is up for grabs. If they lose this game, they fall to the 5th seed, most likely, because I think we assume Dallas is going to roll over Washington.
We'd assume so, but I mean, if you're Philly, you have to assume that's what's going to happen.
Well, we are the Giants, so we are assuming that after we do our business, that's what's going to happen. I mean, I'm not going to bank on the team not making the playoffs, winning. I'm going to assume because it, yeah. So let me ask you, would you rather have the Eagles get the 1 seed, get some rest, and then end up playing Seattle, Detroit, or Green Bay? Or would you rather force them to play again in a week, get the 5th seed, and play Tampa Bay?
Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter because it's either Philly or Dallas. So I really can't worry about other people's problems.
No, I'm just curious which one you would prefer. Would you rather Dallas get the rest or Philly get the rest?
I would rather have Dallas get the rest because Philly is banged up. And if Jalen Hurts is not 100% ready and he has to play next week, good. Because that team scares Dallas and Philly both scare me, and the better chance to get rid of one of those teams early on in the process to me is a good thing. So I would rather get Philly. I'd rather have Philly on the field and playing. However, and I know where this is leading to, and this is going to be the bulk of our conversation for the rest of the show, is do we change what we do to make that happen?
Well, here's what's interesting is right now, the Eagles have, who did not practice today, Thursday, January 5th, Lane Johnson did not practice with a groin injury. Avonte Maddox has a toe injury, and Josh Sweat has a neck injury. Limited in practice today were Miles Sanders with a knee, Jalen Hurts with a shoulder, and two linebackers, Sean Bradley and Janarius Robinson, that are not important to this conversation. But do you think, because I kind of do, Philly makes decisions based on what the Giants decide to do? If Brian Dable tomorrow says, all of the starters are resting, do you think Jalen Hurts plays?
You think the Eagles believe him?
I don't know.
I wouldn't.
Well, wait. No, they have to. You can't announce somebody who is out
unless they're inactive. Sure, you can.
Not if it's injury related in any way.
But so they're going to say all of a sudden that.
Well, Daniel Jones is a different story, but let's say, I don't know, Evan Neal, or John Feliciano because he's on the injury report. I mean, in any case, you agree though that the Eagles are going to pivot based on what the Giants do for this game, right?
I disagree. I think they're going to. I think they're going to play based on what they think they need to do to win.
But the bare minimum, right? To what they think they're going to do to win, they need to win.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to. If somebody is doubtful, they're not going to get them out there and say, "We need this." This is again. This is not.
This is for a first seed. They're not. They don't need this that.
Yeah,
desperately.
Everybody's treating this game and this weekend like this is the Super Bowl. I mean, we're gonna have a discussion about should the Giants rest or start players and everything. At the end of the day, we still have the playoffs to go, and at the end of the day, if Philly loses this game, it's not like they're out of the playoffs. We're starting over again. So it's kind of, interesting, but it's not life or death like you're making this whole thing out to be.
I agree with you. I think that this may be the only thing that we really have to talk about in a game in which we can't advance or fall. But just because it's the only thing to really discuss regarding this game doesn't mean that it's critically important. Because at the end of the day, this game, unless this game ends up being epic or we win the Super Bowl, in 3 years, are we going to remember what week 18, like the ins and outs of this game? No, we'll remember if we sat him or start him or whatever, but
it would be in the context of another discussion about something else, like, back in time. Well, in 2022, see, the thing is, this is the interesting thing for me is we're still learning about this coaching staff.
That's true.
And we're learning about what makes them tick and what they do to make their team tick. So that to me is more interesting. I'm going to go on the record that I think this whole story of the Patriot game and, with playing in LA, and that led to the Super Bowl win. I think that is one of the most overblown stories in Giants history. It sounds great at the end, looking back on it, but I think people make that out to be like this team was garbage, and because they hung with the team, all of a sudden they were fired up for 3 games and won. This Giant team right now is playing on a wave of confidence. And to me, momentum isn't as important as health and rest. This is week 18 of a season that's been a grind. There was a bye week already. They've gone through the bye, but teams accumulate nicks and bang-ups and everything and mental drain and all this. And, I think the thing about motivation and momentum going in, I think is an overblown thing. Now, I never played the game, so this is just my gut feeling about it. I would rather give myself as much chance to be healthy and rested going into the playoffs than this particular game. Because remember, Grump, the goal of the regular season is to be the 1 seed so you get a bye week, right? That means you're playing pretty good. You're the 1 seed, so you're getting that week off.
I don't know that everyone would agree with that. I don't think that's a 100% consensus.
You don't think so? I mean,
No.
that opportunity. Now, this is a little different than a bye, because this is almost like a working bye. It's not like, when you have a bye, like there's no boat trip this weekend where, people are going and scattering for 3 or 4 days and then coming back and playing. This is, you're preparing for a game. You're doing the things you have to do during the week to get ready. Some guys are going to play, not everybody, and not everybody for a full game. So it's kind of like a working session, but not a full. It's as close to a bye as you're going to get without being a true bye vacation week. Right.
Okay.
But I don't know. I think, again, again, it goes back to my point that we're still trying to figure out what makes this coaching staff tick. What do they use for motivation things? I saw somebody say, I think Pat Traina said it on her show about, Dable has said winning at all costs in every game is paramount, whether it's a preseason game or a game 17 or 18 like this. That's bullshit. You can't tell me that coaches, unless you're an idiot like Rex Ryan, are trying to win a preseason game is as important as winning, a regular season game or a playoff game. So there's some coach speak out there being said, but, I think he's a big picture guy. And I think he knows that the playoffs are more important than this particular game.
So I'm going to halfway agree with you. I'm
Okay.
going to start from the top here.
Go for it.
I think that in 2007, playing the starters against the Patriots in Week 17 is not an overblown story. And I think that did help not give them momentum into the playoffs, but it did help their confidence for the week going into the Super Bowl. I will say that. I think that playing that game the way they did let them prepare knowing that they can win, knowing it. I don't think there was a doubt on anyone in that team that they could win that game against them. Where I will agree with you is I don't think it's an apples to apples comparison to this year. So it shouldn't be talked about that way because the Patriots were playing for something historic.
Right.
Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Randy Moss are all of these guys, as in every NFL player. But those guys specifically are big time ego guys. And that meant a lot to them. Additionally, there is not that much at stake for the Eagles here. Rest, okay, whatever. You could, at this point, if you were really concerned about the rest, if you're the Eagles, could you not just rest this week? Take the 5 seed. If that even happens, by the way. We made the argument not that long ago that if Philly rests their starters, we're not sure we can even win. So, could you not just take the bye week this week? I mean, if it was so paramount, if there was an injury to Jalen Hurts that you're like, oh my God, we cannot lose this bye week. Just sit him now. Just let him get better now.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking for that is, when is their timeline for their most important guys ready to be?
And we don't know that, and we're never going to know that because A, we're not doctors. B, yes, correct. But my point is, it's not apples to apples here. What the Patriots were playing for is something that no one else other than the 72 Dolphins have ever played for. Ever. So it meant everything to them, every single player there. Coaches too. This doesn't mean everything to the Eagles because if they lose, they are definitely still going to the playoffs. They are definitely still one of the best teams in the NFC by a pretty big margin from the 7th seed that's going to get in.
And they'll
here.
probably play Tampa Bay, which would be,
I mean, will they even? They might. Oh, yes. I think, did Tampa Bay lock it?
I believe they've locked it. They're not jumping ahead of anybody else, I don't believe.
No. That's not my... Nobody else in the NFC South because the Panthers lost.
They won the division. They won
the division. Yeah, so yes, they are playing Tampa Bay, who's not that good.
Exactly.
So
let me throw something at you, like looking at it a different way. We talk about, playing against Philly and we can play with these guys and build momentum and confidence going to the playoffs. What if we play all the starters and Philly beats the shit out of us again?
Well, there's that. But here's the other thing. Why it's not an apples to apples comparison is because, well, for starters, the Eagles are kind of hurt. So it would be whatever. It would be, I guess, punking a team that if you do play them again, you're not playing, Gardner Minshew or a bum right shoulder hurts. I mean, he'll be more healed by the time they see him again. I mean, unless they bury him. I guess we're not considering the possibility that we further hurt some of these players. Whatever. But fucking forgot my point. The momentum here. The momentum would just be carrying over momentum into the playoffs, which was not the 2007 Giants' problem. It really wasn't. They didn't need to build momentum into the playoffs.
Yeah, they'd won something like 3 out of the last 4 before that.
They won like 6 straight at one point in that season.
Right.
And it wasn't the very beginning of the year like this team's was.
It was like middle to late in the season. I think I saw it before. I think they'd won 3 out of the last 4 going into the New England game.
So here's where it's different, and let's get into the actual conversation.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I agree with you. Yes, making the playoffs is being healthy in the playoffs is more important than momentum. However, this year, at this time, for this team, momentum is very important for them. And I think that was evident based on the way they came out against Washington at the tie and the way they came out against Washington afterwards. They were so flat in that first Washington game. The way they came out against Washington, in my opinion, carried over into the way they played in Minnesota, which absolutely carried over into the way they ended the Colts game in the first half. That game was over. Nick Foles was hurt. They threw a pick six. We were up 24-3, I believe, at halftime. That game was over. Momentum is more important to this team than it was the 2017. So here's where I'm going with this. And we'll go through a little player by player because I do think, for starters, you don't make a blanket decision. You treat each player individually because they all have different injuries.
100% agree.
So let's start right there because anyone who's just saying play the starters is already giving you half an answer and not a real one.
Right.
But I do think you treat this game where you get your starters out there for 2 to 3 series and then pull them because the result may not matter for this game. But if they go out there and let's just say they're not that great against a team that is better than the Colts. Okay, you shook some rust off. You know where you got to work, whatever. But they're not cold going into the playoffs. And I don't like the idea of just sitting and getting that momentum to die. They don't have to continue to build momentum, in my opinion. They don't have to win this game or dominate in this game or lose the right way. I think they just have to not get cold, in my opinion. Let them go out there and be loose. If you fuck up, it don't matter. This game doesn't matter. Go out there, play football. Let's go iron some things out. Let's work on some stuff. That's the way I see it for this. I don't want them to sit and get cold. Do you agree with that? How do you feel about any of the things I said?
I agree with you in principle. First of all, if there are guys, that are, Leonard Williams type guy who's, not 100% healthy, sit.
Yep.
Even someone like Andrew Thomas, sit.
I'm gonna go ahead.
Someone like Evan Neal, sit. Anybody who's not 100% healthy and where we want them to be 100% healthy next week, I'd sit. That's the first thing off the top.
All right,
Guys like Daniel Jones, guys like him get tricky because, what Daniel does that makes him great, or I'm using that term in context of what makes him special for this team, are things that could potentially put him at risk. And, if we're just going to have him back there and he's not going to run it all and he's just going to be in the pocket, just, doing very vanilla, bland things, is it really our offense? Is it really what he does best? Is it even worth it to have him out there? So I think I kind of agree with you in the Give him a couple of series, you know, get the juices flowing, go through the preparation of a game week as if he's playing, and then you pull these guys. And I say, regardless of the score, we're down 14-0, we're up 7-3. I think, once you get into the flow, you pull these out, and then we move on for next week. I also think if I'm a coaching staff, I think I kind of take a temperature check of my team and see what you want to do too, which
Sure.
leads me to another point I want to throw at you as a question. If you're Daniel Jones and you're Saquon Barkley and you are potentially 2 games away from being free agents and this game really is meaningless, do you want to play in these games and risk, without a safety net, potentially injury and potentially costing you millions of dollars?
My opinion, if I'm one of those 2 players, is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
I would. I mean, I can't get into the headspace of an NFL competitor. So for me, I would want to sit because if I'm Daniel Jones, I've already had a scary neck injury, which we don't to this day really know that much about, which is really wild to think about. If
Right.
I'm Barkley, I've already torn an ACL and, messed up my ankle a little bit. I've only just gotten my feet underneath me. I know this is my payday. I can't say for that. I mean, Daniel does not give a fuck about his body. He really does not care, man. When he's out there,
may
he
not.
is playing.
I when he's playing, he does not give a shit about his body. But again, that's a huge matzo ball that's out there.
Oh,
we're
yeah.
talking.
I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I'm not talking about I'm going to be a free agent next year. Do I not want to play in a wild card game? That's not all I'm saying.
No. That's not what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
but this is a meaningless game.
Yes.
And when he's out there, he doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
He's got like a light switch we saw him slide last week in the open field.
Yes.
Maybe for this game he's got it under control. I don't know. Here's where I'm gonna kind of disagree with you a little bit.
Okay.
My overall feeling here is Jones, Thomas, Bredesen and Gates, Feliciano, Galinsky and Neal, Hodgins, James, Bellinger, Slayton. I'm giving all of those guys 2 to 3 series based on how the game is going. Barkley, I'm sitting. But he's going to be active for game day, but he's on the sideline. I'm putting Breida and Brightwell out there. You got plenty of running backs, and we barely used either of them. I am in no circumstances putting Jones back there if Thomas or Neal is sitting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not putting Jones back there. That ends that QB decision for me once and for all. Feliciano, if they want to sit him because he's got a thing with his back or neck, or if I say neck, I have like a 30% chance of being right. If they want to sit him and put Gates at center with Bredesen next to him, I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. I mean,
He did get snaps in garbage time at center last week.
he did.
Yes.
I mean, we're going to pivot this conversation to what we would do versus what we think the coaches will do. If it's me, if I'm the head coach of the New York Football Giants, first of all, we'd be 0-16 at this point. But second, I would not play Daniel Jones or Barkley. To me, we are in such a unique situation to even be in the playoffs that I think I don't think you're sending a bad message to this team that you don't care. I think, like I said, you prepare for this whole week like it's a regular game week. But when you just get to the game, these are the guys that, based on those reports we talked about earlier in the week that we are going to offer big contracts to. That means they are our future. Forget even this playoff run. We don't want, you don't want your quarterback or your star running back being hurt and he's out next week because, we feel pretty good that we might be able to beat Minnesota, but without Daniel Jones, we have no chance to beat Minnesota. But if something serious happens, because it's a meaningless game and they're not available next year, or for all of off season, or the first month of the season, or God forbid a whole season. I try to look at things. As I'm getting older, I try to look at things more big picture than just the heat of the moment for something. So I would sit Daniel Jones.
Well, let me ask you this: if you're going to sit him, are you going to make him inactive just in case Tyrod Taylor gets hurt? At least Davis Webb is going in and not Daniel Jones anyway.
I would have him active just in case. Just in case.
You'd have Daniel Jones active. Would you have Davis Webb active?
No.
Interesting. I think I might. Well, I mean, because part of it is that Tyrod Taylor, even this year, is kind of glass.
He's kind of glass, but again, when you start getting down to Davis Webb, then I'm just thinking back to last year where, you get to your third string quarterback and everything completely falls apart. And when things completely fall apart, other players can be injured as well.
True.
Because of, bad throws.
Incompetence abound.
Exactly. So yeah. I need, if Tyrod Taylor gets hurt, or I don't care, he could be 3 for 40 passing. That's fine in my book. But if he goes down, I can't have the whole, you bring in Daniel Jones, or you just wildcat every play with Brightwell or something and just get through the game and get out of there.
Is there any other player on offense that you think has a specific thing that you're worried about that you haven't mentioned? Jones, Barkley, Thomas, Neal. Those are all guys. Is there anybody else? Bellinger, maybe?
Well, I was thinking about Bellinger. Just, we haven't heard lately how his vision is. If is he back to 100% now, or
I don't know. But he went 3 for 3 last week and looked good doing.
He's looked better. He's definitely looked better. I would say probably not. I think Again, we also might play, even though we're not starting. If we're starting guys, we might be extremely vanilla too.
Well, that I'm going to say absolutely. That is without a doubt. Because, and here I'll tell you why, is that coaching is such a big part of this team's success, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, that they're not, I don't think they should, I don't want them to, and I don't think they will reveal anything crazy. That shit is all in their pockets for the playoffs.
Might play Philly at some point again.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, again, making it vanilla, just very basic things. You want to decrease the chance of other guys getting hurt, like on crossing routes or something. Just, I think you just dumb it down and just you go through the motions and get this over with.
I think you go out there and you give the starting offense 2 series, see how that goes. If there's something else, and you can make a decision, right? You can be like, you know what? The wide receivers were kind of bad on that one. We're going to leave them out there for one more series. Maybe we'll change out the offensive line so they don't get hurt. We'll change out the tight ends. We'll put Tyrod Taylor out there, something like that. You can do stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Defensively, let's shift. Right off the top of my head, and we already mentioned him, Leonard Williams, I'm sitting him. No question. God damn, man. The fact that he's even played the last few weeks and the workload he got, pretty wild. Not counting the Colts game, but the week before, Minnesota game, he played something like 90+% of snaps or something like that. Azeez Ojulari.
Azeez, absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah. But then you go into, let's talk specifically about the 2 DBs that I'm sure most people are thinking about, and that's Xavier McKinney. Do you play him?
I would play him a little bit because I think he has to knock some rust off.
Okay. I think so too, and I say that because even though he played most of the game against the Colts, I think offensively the Colts are kind of garbage. I think for half of that game you had Sam Ehlinger back there. He's not really – he's getting his game feet back.
And his injury wasn't something like a hamstring where he's going to be running around at 85 speed. It's something unique. So –
yeah. I agree with you about McKinney. What about Adoree Jackson?
I sit him.
Interesting. I am definitely giving Adoree Jackson 2 series. Now, listen, this is predicated on the assumption that he is medically cleared.
Of course.
Right. So I don't want a starting corner Remember, there is a ton of confidence that goes with that position.
Mm-hmm.
You have to trust your ability, your instincts, and your film study to be good at corner. That's it. You just have to trust what you know. You also have to trust that when you put your foot in the ground to change direction, that it's going to cooperate and it's not going to buckle.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, you don't gain that confidence until you've went into a live bullets situation for some amount of time.
See, that's where I was a little different because, again, this is where I said this is like a practice bye week without having, this team wasn't off for 4 or 5 days relaxing. They've been prepping all week, and I know you can't simulate 100% a live game during practice, but you can come pretty close. So, I think you can simulate as much as you can this week going up into it without the risk of the actual game itself.
I'm basing that based on what other players have said after finally getting their first game under their belt from an injury
Mm-hmm.
like that, and that is a huge part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I've never torn an ACL, MCL. I've never, as far as I know, I've never strained one. So,
and I guess
also my life isn't revolve around my ability to do that. So.
Right, and and also I guess what's one more week based on what he has coming back too. So
well, it's the thing. Do you want him to test that for the first time in its full capacity in a playoff game? Because I don't. And I think I made the point that if he's ready, I'd like him to play a little bit against the Colts too.
Yeah, I guess a little bit would not be the end of the world, and you just have him out there.
He's probably the first guy on defense that I'm going to pull. If I'm going to pull one guy before everybody else, it'll probably be Jackson. But I want him to get 2 series.
Yeah, that's fair.
And, maybe you just don't match him up with A.J. Brown. Or
I was thinking about that also. Just have him on wide receiver 2 and just, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
just let him
go out
run
there and play. Just run, test out your knee, feel it. It doesn't matter if you let them get by you and they score a 70-yard bomb. That doesn't matter to me.
Because we do need him next week. We've been saying, that's been the standard line as well with Adoree and what's his name back. We can beat Minnesota. So
absolutely, yeah. Is there anybody else on defense that you're worried about? Moreau, McLeod. I mean, everybody on this defense, I think, plays such an integral role that if one more guy goes down, I'm not 100% sure what we do.
That's the risk of playing this game.
It is. Yeah. So again, this conversation, as we parse through it, like player by player, series by series, football is football. Sometimes people get hurt.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So we can't really put bubble wrap on these guys. I know it's a common phrase, but it's kind of true.
I also don't think there's a right or wrong answer too. This is more what I think I would do. I mean, I'm not going to, if it's early fourth quarter and we have 21 or 22 starters still playing because it's a 3-point game, I'm probably going to be like shaking my head and be like, and also scared shitless. But I don't think that situation is really going to happen.
Well, wait. Let me ask you this, because you don't think there's a right or wrong answer. What is your feeling if they just play the starters and they play to win? Are you freaking? I know you said that you're like holding your breath, whatever, but do you think that's a wrong answer? I do. I think that's
I just said it's not a right or wrong answer how I would do this, but I think that's the wrong answer.
I think that's the wrong answer too.
I mean, now, don't look at this game as a fan. Don't look at this as a fan who was pissed off in 2020 because they screwed us out of a playoff spot. Look at this as
that is more apples to oranges than the 2007.
Of course. That dick with a visor isn't their coach anymore. A majority of that team is not the same team that's playing right now. It's just because we're in the same uniforms. That's why we hate them. But I can't worry about how I'm going to prepare for the playoffs based on something that happened 2 years ago. And I think that's, and
especially
also,
if you're Brian Dable, you weren't even there.
Don't know. Yeah. It's not an affront against them. I mean, not that many people on this roster even from back then either. So I would be shocked if that's what happens. If it's fourth quarter and it's a close game and we have everybody still playing, I would be shocked. I will be I will still be holding my breath until the final whistle on every play.
Does Kenny Galladay get a touchdown in this game?
Kenny Galladay only needs 79 more catches to hit his bonus.
People think that is the funniest joke today. That they are really that I've seen that joke literally from the moment I woke up this morning.
Yes,
it is still fucking going, man. It's not that funny.
It's also,
it's kind of funny, but it's like if you're saying it, did you even look at Twitter today? Because it's literally everywhere. You're just repeating everybody else.
Oh yeah, I was being a smartass.
No, I don't mean you. I mean the fact that I'm still seeing it is crazy.
Yeah, I mean Kenny Galladay has become the wrath of this fan base, and to this day, it's not all his fault.
Well, also, are they sitting him to keep him from hitting incentives that they can't afford to pay him?
I don't know.
I mean, at least in part.
Maybe in part, but I mean, what other incentives are there than this catch one, which, by week 9 or 10, he was not going to hit. So you still had a month or two where
there
they could have
are
used
others. I don't know what they are, but Dan Duggan said that he has an article coming out tomorrow with more realistic things that he can hit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what they are.
Well, but isn't that now I'm not a capologist, but hitting all of your incentives part of your number?
No. You have to hit them first.
Oh, I see. I thought for the cap, it assumes that you're going to hit all of them.
No, I don't think so. I think you got to hit them first.
But then you can go over the cap if you hit incentives?
No, then you have to figure something else out.
I'm going to do some research on that because that doesn't make any sense.
Why not?
See, I think it's kind of like, expensing something or capitalizing something in the very beginning. Like if your contract is, let's say, $5 million and you have incentives to put it up to 10, I think your cap number is 10.
I don't believe it is.
Anybody out there who is a
I mean,
could
correct us on that, but
yeah,
I don't believe that's the case. And also that's like a little bit conspiracy me. Only because they have done some really wild stuff where like cutting Tay Crowder, but then re-signing him to the practice squad saved like a couple $100,000, stuff like that. Like,
yeah. But I also feel like, again, he sat so much that unless he has like, because I remember there was somebody that they voided the contract because some of the incentives were ridiculous. It was like, if you suit up one game and have one snap, you're making X a million. They're like, no, that's circumventing the cap.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. So, but my point for this though is
throughout
he
the
sat
year,
so long.
But that's my point is that and I don't mean they throughout the season did they sit him. Like, did they really, really reduce his playing time because they don't want him getting catches?
I really don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Again, we had David Sills on this roster.
Not anymore. Oh, no, wait. Did we re-sign him?
We re-signed him.
Okay.
But I mean, the point is we were digging down for David Sills when you had a Kenny Galladay on the roster, which they just refused to put on the field.
No, but wait. No, that's a point for that thing, though. That they would rather dig on the roster than give him a chance to make catches.
Right, but I mean,
and earn that number.
We're getting into like November when he's obviously not going to hit that target number.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, there was some point where it was going to be mathematically impossible he was going to make those numbers up, and they still refused to play him.
That's true. Last thing we're going to talk about.
Well, I guess. Let's do predictions, and let's not do predictions on the score. Let's do predictions on what are we going to do? What is this coaching staff going to do?
Man, I don't know, but I have to think everything I've seen from Brian Daboll so far is that he's a player's guy.
Is he?
Well, in terms of
players that he likes.
I think he's just more of a player's perspective kind of coach rather than an administrator is kind of where I was going with that.
Okay. That makes more sense. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think he's going to play them a little bit. I do. I don't think it's going to be all of the starters. I guess there's a chance Jones and Barkley don't play. I don't think Barkley plays. That one I'm pretty sure about. Everybody else, including Jones, I have no idea. Leonard Williams isn't playing. Azeez Ojulari isn't going to play. I don't think Dexter Lawrence is going to play. I don't know. No, you know what? I think they're going to play for a little bit.
Let's do something else then. Coming out of halftime, who's still playing?
Nobody.
Agreed.
Nobody. I don't think.
100% agreed, regardless of the score.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with that.
Well, also, if we're beating the shit out of them, momentum gained. Momentum gained. You've already got it. Sit everybody. If at halftime we're winning, then just sit them because you have already taught the players what they needed to know, and that's fine. Put it aside. Put it on the table. That worked.
I think if you get out of the first quarter and it's 0-0 or 7-7, momentum gained and it's over.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that the score is irrelevant. It's more about what you saw.
Well, yeah, I mean, the score is just kind of like, were you successful in doing what you were trying to do?
Yeah, exactly. If it's 0-0 because A.J. Brown was wide open in the end zone 70 yards downfield and just dropped it, that is not momentum gained.
Exactly.
But yeah, I agree with you.
But I also think the players know what's going on too. So, momentum. I still think they're going to come out of this game. I don't think they're going to have a loss of momentum or a loss of confidence. I think confidence is probably more the key word than momentum in all this.
Probably.
And, I think they know. And again, we are not in those meeting rooms. We're not on the practice. We don't know what's being said, how they are preparing for this. But I know for a lot of these guys on this roster, this is their first go around.
Oh yeah, and Leonard Williams included.
Mm-hmm.
And the big quote. So
Daniel Jones
saying, "We've suffered long enough," to Nick Gates on a hot mic. I guess technically, I guess who was it? Nick Gates was mic'd up.
I believe so.
So saying we suffered long enough. Are you gonna risk the fact that he might get hurt and not play?
Yeah.
The guy that you're offering a multi-year deal to, I don't know. Everything about Brian Daboll tells me that he is a competitor, so I think that's where it's going to go.
But also, everything that Brian Daboll has done tells me he's also a big picture guy.
Well,
because I think the way they're constructing this roster, the way they've jettisoned guys that are not their guys, the way they've sacked guys that are not their guys, I think that tells me those aren't moves that were done for the here and now. That's for big picture and culture and things. So, this playoff run was not expected. And, I think they're trying to toe that line between the here and now and the big picture. And I don't think they're going to risk any bit of that big picture for a here and now that's ultimately not going to impact the next week here and now.
Washington versus Dallas. Thoughts?
I think this could possibly be Ron Rivera's last game as head coach.
It's weird to think about, but I think you might be right.
Yes, Dallas wins big. I also am not 100% convinced that Mike McCarthy is going to be the head coach of the Cowboys next year.
Well, I mean, with Sean Payton on the market, nobody in Dallas is safe. That's
right. I mean, because there's always the chance of that Dallas laying an egg in the playoffs.
That is almost a guarantee, my friend.
Yeah. And if
Texas and Mike McCarthy, Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys, etc.
I mean, if they even lose to Tampa Bay in the first round, if they lose to that team, that's all Jerry Jones needs to smoke him and go right for Sean Payton and offer him half of East Texas.
I agree with you. Are you going to care? I guess there's probably a 99% chance we're playing Minnesota. Mm-hmm. You want Minnesota, right? You don't want any part of San Francisco instead?
My preference would be Minnesota, for sure.
I agree. I know it's Brock Purdy, etc. I would rather face Kevin O'Connell's team. I would rather face Kirk Cousins.
I would not want to face San Francisco's defense.
That's the thing. I would rather face Kirk Cousins knowing that we're putting up points on offense than face Brock Purdy and not sure if we can score a touchdown in the game. You know? That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah. I mean, also, I think Giant fans are a little, we'll beat Minnesota. We have Minnesota's still a good team. I mean, I don't think
but it's the playoffs. I mean, we're still picking, you're picking the best poison you can. Right. What can we survive?
And Minnesota, I know they may not be as good as their record. All the advanced stats say that, but they are still a very solid team who beat us.
Yeah, but I don't think they want any part of us either. Do you? If you're a Vikings fan, you don't want to play us, right?
I would probably say probably not. I mean, if your options are, the Giants or Green Bay, I think they'd rather play Green Bay.
Especially since it'll be the third time they play them this year.
Exactly. Yeah. Although they just beat the shit out of them, but.
Yeah, but all right. Well, I don't have anything else on this game. I am going to be watching. I'm more interested in the food I'm going to be eating while I watch. But this is cool. This is awesome.
There's a very good chance that by the second half, I'll have the red zone on, watching other things going on. And not because our season's over and I'm done with the Giants this year, but because I've moved on to the playoffs.
I mean, I'll be checking that Dallas game.
Sure.
All right. That is going to do it for this episode. We will recap the game, but really more so the playoff picture on Tuesday morning. That episode will be available on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, etc., as well as on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe there. And we will be active on Twitter as usual at @football_grump. It's right on the screen. At the Cranky Fan. It's right on the screen. And any parting words for the last week of the regular season, Cranky?
If you would have told me back in August when we were at training camp that we'd be doing this episode, kind of just like, whatever, getting ready for the playoffs, I'd say pass that over, and I'd like to take a hit of it myself. So I'm just very happy we're in this position. This has been another great year. We've met a lot of more friends at all the tailgates and everything, and everybody through Giants Twitter and all that. It's just been great, and I'm looking forward to, the first, hopefully, many playoff runs for this team with this core.
I hope so too. I think this is the right group in charge, and this is the first of many. So savor it, but get ready for it again next year, because we're coming, man. Brian Daboll and the Giants and Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, they're coming. All right, everyone. We will see you all Tuesday morning. Watch your Giants game. Root for your team. 1, 2, 3. Go Giants.